Happy Tuesday, folks. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're back for another week of NFL Pick'ems. I'm your host, Nikki Stees, joined by my co-host, the up and rising Agent Warrior X.
Season's greetings and happy holidays, everyone. This is Agent Warrior X here, and today we are live on Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025, the final month of 2025. Now, might have experienced some technical difficulties because we can't see each other at the
Your
moment.
audio is breaking up.
Yeah, thank you. Hold on. So, just to make sure. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, a little bit.
All right. So for the holidays, we have a very special holiday season at this time of year. And due to technical difficulties, we can't see each other, but you can hear us. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to recap what happened in week 13. This Thanksgiving was one of the wildest Thanksgivings we have ever seen in our lives. I was right about everything about Dallas. They have officially become a perfect balanced team and could potentially come back to win the NFC East.
Yes, and Thanksgiving, I'll say not just Thanksgiving, but this week as a whole probably caused me to lose my sanity a couple times. First on Thanksgiving, particularly with the Cincinnati Bengals beating the Baltimore Ravens, the way they did with the Ravens offense being inefficient, it was like, wait, what just happened here again? Am I seeing this correctly? And then on Friday with the Eagles and Bears, I feel like I lost my sanity at the horrific play, particularly on offensive side, as well as the defense being unable to stop the run, letting two backs go for over 100. And then on Sunday, you had a few games that were a bit odd too. Like even the Commanders Broncos had me holding my breath toward the end. I'm like, is this really this bad pick wise? Until Nick Bonita made the save. And then yesterday, as far as expectancy goes, it seemed more normal in terms of the Patriots Giants being the expected result, but a lot of sanity questioning moments.
Sorry to interrupt, but I really can't see anything in terms of each other. But as of right now, I think in my perspective, I see I see this as a wild week. About what happened last night, I was dead wrong. The New York Giants defenses look very bad. And that play, oh boy, where do I begin with that play with Young Wei Koo? The butt fumble from the Patriots and Jets. We have the butt fumble, the wide right, Young Wei Koo missing. Give me a moment.
All right. Give it 1 minute. Agent Warrior X should be back in just a second. While we're waiting for his return, let's talk about some of the we did get some weird plays, particularly the most crazy was Minnesota Vikings quarterback Max Browser, whatever his last name was, having a horrific debut for the ages. And when I say this was a bad debut, this was one of those games that might lead to him never playing a down in the National Football League ever again. Seriously, it was that bad of a performance. He had 4 interceptions, including one pick six by Ernest Jones, that it made no sense. No sense for him to even try to throw that pass. He was getting blitzed. He should have at least thrown the ball to out of bounds or just slid and took a sack because it was a. Is it better?
Yeah, it's better, but we still can't see each other.
I got my camera off.
Oh, okay, okay. So I'm gonna say that this whole week, as far as week 13 goes, this was one of the most confusing weeks we've ever seen. Oh yeah, did I also mention about the Falcons and Jets? About that.
Yeah.
That was one of the wildest wins the Jets have ever done. I kid you not. I kid you not. The moment that the Nick Folk hit a game-winning field goal, immediately destroyed their tank. This immediately destroyed their tank because I have no other words but to say that the Jets are absolute fools. You need a quarterback. You're not going to the playoffs anytime soon. What are you winning for? I understand you want to play to win, but doing this in meaningless games? This is completely unacceptable.
And for that was like I said earlier on the 3-point splits, the biggest lose-lose game for both teams. For the Jets, you win the game, but it doesn't help your draft position at a time you need a quarterback. And on the flip side, for the Falcons, any hope you had with this current core, the way it's currently constructed under Raheem Morris, you lost your hope right there. It's obvious for the Falcons. They got to start with changing at the top and then go from there. For them to lose this game, and they're stuck between injury riddled Michael Penix, who, if you look at his injury history, go back to his injury history at college. There were red flags even before he got drafted. And now you got Kirk Cousins, who's getting closer to 38. Not an ideal QB situation for the future. So ultimately, both teams lost in this one.
I kid you not. By the way, someone said in the comments earlier today said hi. And of course, yes, Siren Chan VA. Hi. And I'm going to tell, she's a Vikings fan, by the way. And I forgot to tell this. Max Brosmer was horrible. They got blown out by the Seahawks. Did you see that? How Sam Darnold single-handedly got revenge against the Vikings?
They didn't even score a single point.
And this Justin Jefferson didn't even bother scoring a touchdown.
He had 2 receptions for 4 yards on 2 receptions. Like, Justin Jefferson didn't even have a good game or even a decent game. The Vikings really looked like the Raiders this week.
I mean, oh my God! Speaking of the Raiders, I was not too surprised about what happened against the Chargers because firing your offensive coordinator pretty much did nothing to fix the team. And on top of all that, I could pretty much say that this, in my opinion, is one of the worst losses the Vikings had. The worst loser definitely goes to the Vikings because they basically fumbled almost every single play. Max Brosmer threw a pick 6 to one of the defenders, and to top it all off, as JJ McCarthy is on the concussion protocol, they've gotten worse. I'm starting to think that Kevin Patullo should really take notes and adjust it and improve the offense.
Oh my God. Kevin Patullo, this has been the worst offensive coordinator the Eagles have had, either in history or one of the worst in history. But he's definitely the worst of recent memory for sure. Some of the play calling made absolutely no sense. You want a perfect example without going through all the little things they did. Get to the end of the game, you're down 8 points. First, on third down, Hurts slides up the middle, no timeouts. They have to spike it on third down. B, you send the field goal unit out down 8 at the end of the game. You're not even going to try to go for it. I know the offense wasn't that great, but at least try to go for the end zone. And they didn't even make the field goal.
You know what's crazy about it? The Black Friday game was actually pretty much expected because the Bears pretty much outplayed the Eagles. And that tush push fumble should have been called on the Giants. Do you remember how the Giants and Eagles game played out after Cam Scottaboo got hurt and Brian Burns took the football away from Hurts? That should have been a fumble. The refs was clearly just not good at all. I'm starting to think that these referees need to get their officiating correct. Because if they don't, they might as well just say that this is the most rigged sports league in the country. But I kid you not. As far as I'm concerned, speaking of Kevin Patullo, did you see what happened about what happened in Northern Jersey with those kids? Why were they throwing eggs at Kevin Patullo's house? They have a family. They have a family there. And I'm starting to think this is not only embarrassing, but this, in my opinion, is the worst way possible for Eagles fans to think, oh, Kevin Patullo needs to be fired. I understand your frustration, but going into someone's house and throwing rocks or eggs at them is completely unacceptable. And by the way, I did say this on Instagram, so I'm going to read it to you before we continue for week 14. This is exactly why I have the Eagles as the worst fan base that Dallas, because they take things way too far. I understand their frustration, but this is way too far. As a Giant fan outside of the NFC East, this is completely unacceptable. I mean, yes, uh, us and every fan in the a team in each respective leagues has every right to be angry, but this is way too far. And I quote, in their respective leagues, when people are pissed at players or coaches or GMs, I completely understand it, but never go to someone's house and try to throw stuff at them. This is unacceptable. It's disgusting and it's disgraceful.
In the new day and age, particularly the link in financial field day and age of the Eagles, and that era, particularly younger Eagles fans, we've worked to try to rehabilitate our fan base's image, try to get away from the negative stigma we've had, to get away from that 700 level at the vet stigma. There was a time period then, the old stadium, Veterans Stadium, where they had a jail cell and a judge in the stadium. We've been trying to get away from that stigma, and unfortunately, incidents like this put back that stigma of Philly fans being too serious about their sports and never being happy. Now, I get we're not happy with this season the way it's played out with Kevin Patullo because we have a Super Bowl roster and it's not living up to expectations. By all means, go on Twitter, go on YouTube, talk about the man as a football coach all you want to, but crossing personal boundaries, throwing eggs, throwing rocks, sending death threats, or anything. There was no death threat sent. I'm using it as an illustration. Any of that
That's
behavior
literally the same mistake you made back with the 49ers punt returner. And especially for Mark, I think it was Mark Andrews, right? That's literally the same mistake you made back with the 49ers punter after that fumble in the NFC Championship game back in 2011.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to stop with it. There's a line to cross. And not to mention, fans got to understand the consequences that come with it. This type of behavior could either get you banned from stadiums, get you fired from a job if your employer finds out you were involved, possibly get criminal charges pressed against you. No football game is worth losing what you have over, no matter how you feel about the people involved as professionals at their craft. It's not worth getting in trouble over.
Exactly. Which is why you respect the truce. Go have fun. Go do your chants in football, baseball, basketball, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, if your team sucks, you don't go after someone's home. Period.
Yeah.
Now, as for the Monday Night Football game, that's literally the same mistake you made back with the Steelers and Giants game last year. You know how that one dumb play, the one dumb funded play they made with Daniel Jones throwing it to Malik Neighbors for a 2-point conversion? The heck was that? That's literally the same mistake you made back last year while we were playing against the Dodgers in the World Series last year.
And this really it's not really a surprise. We know the Patriots are the much better team, and they played up to it. We expected a bit of a more competitive matchup, but we didn't get that. Now, depending on which point of view you're looking at it from, I mean, the only ones I think truly enjoyed it were Patriot fans because they got to see their team dominate. But outside of that, it was kind of a unforgettable Monday night game, and I didn't watch the whole game because it kind of got boring after a while.
And not only that, that one hit from Jackson Dart was absolutely amazing. And I know people say that it's dirty, but in my opinion, that's a legal hit. That's a legal hit, in my opinion.
But I mean, it's legal though. As long as it's legal, I don't see anything wrong with it. And to the players that reacted emotionally, you got to be smarter than that. Don't, I understand wanting to stick up for your teammate, but you got to do so in a smarter way.
Exactly. So week 13 was in the books. This was one of the most confusing and strangest weeks we've ever seen. Now let's move on to week 14.
Yes. And this week 14, it's going to open up with something that I'm surprised that percentages where it's at. You'll see it in a second. Thursday night, Detroit Lions hosting the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a bit surprised by the 68% to 32%.
We got the Dallas Cowboys versus the Detroit Lions. The same day that Metroid Prime 4 is released for the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I am going to put it this way and say that I kid you not to say that the Detroit Lions may have an upper advantage, but no. Dallas has every advantage in terms of the defense and the offense. Sure, the defense struggled minorly, but George Pickens has been carrying the team regardless. So I'm not going to waste more time. Give me the Dallas Cowboys over the Detroit Lions to improve to 7-5 and 1.
I've said it ever since Thanksgiving. It's perfectly fitting that these two teams played on Thanksgiving and they come back because I had a whole week to think about it. And I realized Lions are not too many injuries. Kirby Joseph injuries hurt their secondary. And you also have injuries on the offensive side of the ball, particularly Amon-Ra St. Brown. So the Lions aren't playing as great. Well, the Cowboys have won 3 straight. Dak's thrown 3 straight games with multiple touchdown passes since the bye. And the Cowboys are looking like the stronger team going into this. They've started to find a little bit of a groove on defense. And I think this is the game where the Lions can shock everyone, go to Ford Field and beat the Detroit Lions, improve their way to 7-5 and 1 and start building momentum headed into the playoffs. So I'll take the Cowboys in the upset to keep that streak going. And momentum sticks where it's at.
What? What's the next matchup?
It's the Falcons again hosting the Seahawks.
Oh boy, we got the Atlanta Falcons versus the Seattle Seahawks. Sam Darnold has come off an amazing win against, well, basically a shutout against the Vikings. And 2, Sam Darnold, JSN, and their defense looks potentially good. It's great for a future playoff contender, but I'm not going to waste no more further. But as for the Atlanta Falcons, my goodness, this is really one of the worst ways possible. You allow one of the worst teams in the league, well, technically one of the second worst teams, one of the second worst teams in the AFC, let you destroy your tank. My real question is, what the heck were the Jets doing? What was, I understand the win and all, but this is unacceptable. But we'll get to the Jets later. Seahawks over Falcons.
At this point, anything other than the Seahawks beating the Falcons would mean something crazy happened out of the ordinary. Someone important got hurt. The Seahawks didn't prepare properly because when you look at this matchup, it should be a Seahawks win. Falcons have been dreadful all season, including a loss to the Jets. Now you got the Seahawks, who have one of the best all-around teams, both offensively and defensively, who are still tied for first in the NFC West and possibly a home playoff game. I got to go with the Seahawks in this one. Clearly the better all-around team. This is the perfect time of year for these teams to match up.
Mitch said, can't see you guys. The overlay is on. You forgot to turn the overlay off.
Hold on.
we go. There we go. Now we see it. So next up, oh boy, yeah, this was very confusing. So the next one, you want me to say it? You want me to say those two magic words?
Go for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a super tank bowl between the Cleveland Browns versus the Tennessee Titans. You got the two promising quarterbacks who unfortunately have started few games or never lived up to their expectations. Shador Sanders is starting again. Cam Ward, well, let's just say that he needs some help at least. Besides Calvin Ridley, I kid you not that this is officially one of the worst ways I could describe the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans way possible. But boy, Cleveland are in a heap of trouble. But I got Tennessee upsetting the Cleveland Browns.
I'm going to go with the Browns in this one because, well, the Browns do have a bit of a better roster. And Shador Sanders, at least last week, he didn't play great, but he didn't play completely horrible either, despite what the final score says. And the Browns do, let's not forget, have some weapons. You got some solid pieces such as, what's his name? Jerry Jeudy,
Isaiah Bond, yeah.
Yep, there's some decent people. And the Browns got a decent rookie running back as well. I'll take them to get the win over the Titans, which really is just building momentum and a bunch of guys playing for job security for next year. And Myles Garrett probably gets another sack and it's closer to breaking the tied record between Michael Strahan and TJ Watt.
You know, to be honest with you, speaking of Myles Garrett, I got to give it props because Myles Garrett is playing a similar defensive player like Michael Strahan. He's even this close for surpassing Lawrence Taylor for most sacks in a single season. I kid you not. Myles Garrett is one of those players that he is like similar to Reggie White, sorry.
Yeah, and yep, definitely. This Myles Garrett, the best player on the Browns roster by far. It's a shame he's having his season wasted. And now you got two teams who are wasting some talented players. You got the Washington Commanders playing the Minnesota Vikings. Before we get into that, do you hear Adam Thielen got claimed by the Steelers off waivers?
I was going to say, Adam Thielen, I feel sorry for Adam Thielen, but I can't really blame him. But show that high comment so that way I can remember what I said about the Vikings.
Oh,
in one of the comments right up in the show. But I kid you not. Oh man, I'm gonna get roasted so hard for saying this, but Minnesota at this point is completely lost in the NFC North. I thought Max Brosmer was gonna do good, but I was dead wrong. He threw a pick straight into the defense, to the Seahawks defense, and I kid you not, I thought Max Brosmer was going to do much more better than JJ McCarthy. Apparently, I was wrong in multiple different ways. One, Justin Jefferson didn't even bother getting a touchdown. Two, the offense is allowing more sacks than the Seahawks had. And three, the defense, well, let's just say the defense is not looking elite, but the offense looks yikes. Aaron Jones, I'm starting to think that Aaron Jones is no longer the running back that we once knew from Green Bay. So give me the Commanders over the Minnesota Vikings because Marcus Mariota has the upward advantage now with Scary Terry and Deebo Samuel things. I see this as an easy win for the Washington Commanders.
Yes, I'll definitely take the Commanders, especially based on the performances of last week. We saw the Vikings are stuck with nothing at quarterback. And that's not an exaggeration either. And the Commanders, at least with them, we saw in the game, they have talent. They took the Denver Broncos to the limit. We're just 1 2-point conversion away from the upset of the week last week. You still got Zach Ertz, who passed Shannon Sharp for most receptions by a tight end. Congrats. Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and a broken Minnesota Vikings team. I'll take Washington to get the win and help with their job security for next year or improve their
I kid you
odds.
not. That catch they made on Sunday night was the most craziest catch I've ever seen since Odell Beckham Jr. against Dallas.
Yep, Traylon Burks has his one career highlight. We'll see if he gets more, but he does at least have a career highlight. And
ladies and gentlemen, the AFC East showdown. We have another Super Tank Bowl. The Miami Dolphins versus the New York Jets. Now, the New York Jets were coming off a great win. I will give props to that. I will give credit to the Jets for their defense, especially their special teams. But the Dolphins, I think the Dolphins might have the upper advantage in terms of the offense. If the defense can get enough stops, then they have an advantage in terms of then they'll potentially have the advantage of beating the Jets. Well, ultimately destroying their tank, but not by a long shot. But for the Jets, I see them as another upset. I know Tyrod Taylor is a good veteran quarterback, but my problems with him, he sometimes get hurt. So I'm not going to waste even further. I have an upset. Jets over Dolphins. So they could destroy their tank again.
Oh gosh, what did Jerry make of the Jets? Seriously, I don't even know at this point.
What is Woody Johnson doing at this point, despite getting 2 first-round picks for the future?
I mean, somebody's trying to improve their odds of keeping their job safe next year, because if you're looking about to tank, what are you trying to get? Is the owner at the top going to give the order of, hey guys, you got to tank it this season? But I don't know. But in this one, the Dolphins are kind of the exact it seems like they're the perfect example of a team with guys desperate to keep their place in the Dolphins organization. That's why they've been rattling off wins on easy games for the most part. And if they win this one, they're 6-7. So, I mean, technically they have a chance, but we know realistically there's too many teams in the AFC fighting for a playoff spot. So I'll take the Dolphins to win this game, which probably isn't really going to help them in the long term. It does more to actually help the Jets, because the Dolphins, for some reason, they're trying to win games.
I kid you not. I'm going to put it this way and say that the Dolphins might have the upper advantage. And now Darren Waller could potentially come back next week. Next team, please. Well, where do I begin here? The Saints versus the Buccaneers, NFC South showdown. Saints are already out. There's no point. Buccaneers over Saints. Baker Mayfield and now Bucky Irving now back. Yeah, the Bucs are now potentially going to win the division.
I said I think the Bucs could collapse now. I mean, the Saints aren't that good of a team either, but I don't know. The Saints are such a horrible team that even with injuries, the Bucs might be able to win this game, because this is such. Oh God, I'll say. Let me look at the depth chart real quick. Yeah, I'll take the Buccaneers to win this game, which just keeps them kind of complacent.
Baker Mayfield is contending for a Super Bowl now on a winning culture.
Yeah, I'll take the Bucs. Then moving right along.
You know what? This Jaguars win really impressed me last week. We got an AFC showdown between the Indianapolis Colts versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence. My goodness, this team has officially changed. I know we're witnessing something special what we saw 3 years ago. Remember that 2022 season where Jacksonville won out and ultimately came back against the Titans? That was one of the greatest division comebacks we've ever seen. Same thing with Dallas. They did the same thing against your team back 2 years ago. But considering how Daniel Jones played out, and he's playing with a fractured fibula. Now, I kid you not, I am kind of worried about the Colts so far, but not by a long shot. You have Tyler Warren, sure. You have Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, but is that enough to beat Brian Thomas Jr., Trevor Lawrence, and Tootin? That's actually a funny name, by the way. I'm not trying to make fun of anyone. So Jacksonville over Indianapolis.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same with them. Indianapolis is starting to get a little cold. It seems like teams have figured them out. They don't have the same aura or now team. They're not the team that everyone thought they were going into the season. That's why they were winning games. But now teams are taking the Jaguars more or the Colts more serious, and it's starting to catch up to them. I think with Jones' injury, Jonathan Taylor starting to have get slowed down a little bit. I'll take the Jaguars to win this game because Liam Cohen's done a nice job turning them around. So I'll take the Jaguars in a close game and to move to first place in the AFC South. And don't forget Josh Hines Allen.
I kid you not. We could potentially see the Jaguars coming back after like what they did 3 years ago. This is the same situation they had with one team's leading the division, but ultimately collapsing in the second half. So give me the Jaguars over the Colts.
And with that too, it would be similar in terms of coming back to win the division, but this would be a stronger Jaguars team roster wise and coaching wise. So the odds of it working out in their favor in terms of them coming back and winning games is favorable at this point. And they're not even as big a hole as they were a few years ago. So it's very more likely the Jaguars could win out and possibly host a home playoff game this go around. Speaking of division titles
AFC
on the
North showdown. This is determined who's going to win the division. And I know Aaron Rodgers is hurt. And I want to say that get well soon. Hopefully Mason Rudolph can do a lot better. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson. My God, on Thanksgiving, he sucked as soon as Joe Burrow came back. He wasn't good enough in terms of Derrick Henry situations like these. I understand your offense is trying to make a statement, but the defense is letting them down. I could ultimately see Baltimore bouncing back. Now for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has been very, very the traditional Pittsburgh way every single season. They always say, we're going to go to the Super Bowl this, we're going to go to Super Bowl that, but they're nothing like Dallas, I'll tell you that. They're a completely different fan base, I'll tell you that. Mike Tomlin has been making some questionable decision about Mason Rudolph. And on top of all that, the fans are booing him, and now they're chanting, fire Mike Tomlin. I don't know. Considering how Mike Tomlin's been doing for the Steelers for the past 2 decades, and they only had one losing season in 2003. So if this is true about Mike Tomlin getting terminated by Black Monday, I would say the New York Giants would go after him or John Harbaugh if he continues to be inconsistent. Ravens over Steelers.
That would definitely be, if either of those two coaches were to become available, that would certainly be a hot candidate for the Giants as well as the other teams. Now, in this one, like I said, Aaron Rodgers is hurt, and we've seen in recent weeks he's playing like it. He looks washed up. He looks ready to retire. Baltimore had an awful week last week against Pittsburgh, but not Pittsburgh, in Cincinnati, but they're the healthier team going into this one. Momentum's more on their side. They've won more games recently. Give me the Ravens to get the win. Not to mention Pittsburgh released Darius Slay earlier today as well.
I see him going back as the Lions more than the Eagles. You might as well keep Adoree Jackson at that point.
I mean, possibly, but the Steelers are down one of their secondary guys. They tried to sign Adam Thielen, which seems like a desperation move at this point. So I'll take the Ravens in this one because the Steelers are lower on talent. I think it's finally catching up to them.
They do this every year, and I'm telling you right now, they're gonna go 9-8, be 1-9, or miss the playoffs. Now, this is a good matchup. We got Joe Burrow back, and you got the reigning defending MVP. The Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo was coming off a great win, I should say. Josh Allen, still doing Josh Allen things. We've seen him vulnerable some games, but he has some moments where he has some bad losses. Now, as for Cincinnati, I was very impressed with Joe Burrow's performance on Thanksgiving. But with Jamar Chase still doing Jamar Chase things and T. Higgins doing T. Higgins things and Joe Flacco is now officially benched, I see Joe Burrow bouncing back for this one. But considering how Buffalo could handle the defense, I see Buffalo coming out as a winner.
Yep, this is going to be what we've come to expect from a Joe Burrow-led Bengals team. High-scoring game, both quarterbacks ball out, but one team you has to win. It's the team with the more competent defense, in this case, the Buffalo Bills. So I give the Bills to win in a high-scoring close game, similar to what we saw from the Bengals and Ravens last season, or what we saw with the Bengals earlier in the season against the Steelers. The second time, it's kind of like one of those games where it's high scoring, but ultimately the Buffalo Bills get the win. So I'll take them to snatch out a win. Maybe they get a turnover, and that could be the deciding factor. But either way, give me the Buffalo Bills. Move to 9-4 and keep themselves alive in that AFC playoff picture. In the next game, this is going to be one of the quickest ones.
Before we get even further, I gotta say that Buffalo has to win out at this point. Because if Buffalo and Patriots lose a couple games and Buffalo wins out, they can still win the division. But as of so far, the Patriots still has the numbers. Moving on to the Broncos versus Raiders. Do I really need to say even further? No. Broncos over Raiders.
Denver Broncos defeat the Las Vegas Raiders and move on to 11-2. Now we just can see what they do after that. But this next one actually is going to be a fun game. Packers hosting the Bears.
I kid you not. The Chicago Bears are a completely different team with Ben Johnson. And I was very impressed about that Black Friday game. And a lot of Eagles fans are really pissed off about it. And some of the delusional ones wants to quit the team. That's on them. Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers, the NFC North shutout to determine who is the king of the North. Now, Green Bay was coming off a bounce-back victory against the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. The Bears was coming off a very, very amazing win against the Eagles on Black Friday. But I kid you not. If Chicago continues to play like this, they got a shot at winning the Super Bowl like they did in 1985. They were this close in 2006, but Peyton Manning was too strong. Bears over Packers.
Yeah, and it is amazing. The Chicago Bears have really come on their own and been the real turnaround team of the season. And the Packers, on the other hand, they're a really great defense. Their offense is like a light bulb. They go on and off by the week. Last week against the banged up Lions, they looked awesome on Turkey Day. But this week they're going against the Bears defense. Now, the Packers have had a long history of owning Bears defenses and torching them, but I feel like this is where there's a turning in the tide, and the Chicago Bears find a way to beat the Green Bay Packers, finally get a big win against them, move to 10-3, and keep momentum going And that could be the thing that would win them the NFC North here. Though the Packers are a good team, it's some of their inconsistencies on offense sometimes in weeks is why I'm not sold on them as contenders. So,
You know what? Rams over Cardinals.
Yeah.
Next.
Yep. Nice rebound for them. Then you got the Texans against the Chiefs Sunday night.
You know what they say? Defense wins championships. The Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And a lot of people are celebrating that the Kansas City Chiefs will be missing the playoffs if they lose this game. If they lose this game, they could potentially be out, but still have a winning record. Now, the entire season was nothing more than Stranger Thing vibes. You have the Broncos in first place for the first time in over a decade. You have the Chargers still contending. You have the Colts as a surprising team, but ultimately the Patriots are now back to their Tom Brady ways. Now, the Texans with CJ Stroud now back, I see them coming out as a W. Texans over Chiefs.
Yeah, I gotta go. I'm gonna go with the Texans too because that defense for the Houston Texans is amazing. They're the best in yards allowed. You've had numerous players with 10 plus sacks, and they all around got a lot of talent right there on that side. You have 25. It's insane. You look at their talent. You got Willie Anderson Jr., Derek Stingley Jr., you got Kalen Bullock, safety, leads the team with 4 interceptions. I mean, they're just really a lot of people sleeping on them in Kansas City with their struggles, just relying on Mahomes and Rice. This is where it finally catches up to them. But I will say Houston wins the game. But in terms of being contenders, what they need is CJ Stroud to return to rookie form. But I got the Texans winning this game. That team's going to be too much for Kansas City to handle because they become too reliant on a couple players. And this is the season where it finally comes back to bite them. And then we close it out.
You know what? Do you remember what last season Football Fun Day with The Simpsons? That was amazing. But now this year, the Football Fun Day is about our favorite Disney and Pixar childhood movie, Monsters, Inc. You got Mike Wazowski representing the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending champs. You have Mike Sullivan. You have Sullivan representing the Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert. Now, Mike Wazowski, he is my favorite character in Monsters, Inc. alongside Sullivan. But I know the Philadelphia Eagles are gonna pretty much still do the same way as the Lions game on Monday night. But ultimately, Sullivan will get redemption after that introduction in the first Monsters, Inc. movie. But I will say this. 2 of our childhood characters coming into Football Fun Day is the greatest thing that they ever did. They did it with Toy Story, they did it with The Simpsons, and now they're doing Monsters, Inc. But you know what they say? I love Disney and Pixar old school movies, especially Toy Story. So give me the Chargers, Team Sullivan all the way.
Oh man. This one, yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles have shot themselves in the foot repeatedly this season, particularly the last couple weeks. And you got a Chargers team that knows how to run the ball. We got a running back, Vidal, who nobody heard of entering the season. We know who he is now. Now, Justin Herbert's going to be less than 100% if he does play in his non-throwing arm, but that's not going to make up for the Eagles' offensive woes and their inability to adapt. So I got the Chargers winning this game to improve their record to 9-4, and the Eagles to fall to 8-5. Now, the Eagles might still win a few games, maybe the Raiders, maybe Washington twice, but not in this game against the Chargers. Chargers are the better team. They've been playing well against the easy opponents, which builds momentum for the tougher games. So I'll take the Chargers to beat the Eagles. Continue what the Bears and Cowboys have done particularly on the ground game. Vital's going to have another great game, kind of like the Bears' two running back duo did. So
I kid you not. I kid you not. When it comes to the Chargers and Eagles, I know a lot of people, including myself, see this as a one lopsided game. But considering having Football Fun Day as one of our favorite Disney and Pixar childhood films in the early 2000s, I'm gonna put it this way, Nikki. I know you like Disney too, because we both grew up watching Disney and Pixar films, and Monsters Inc. was one of the films that I love the most. Mike Wazowski is hilarious. You have Sullivan representing the Chargers. I mentioned that. You have Mike Wazowski representing the defending champs. And this is my opinion, one of the coolest things they've ever done. That's literally the same thing with Bart Simpson with the Cincinnati Bengals, with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And then you have Homer Simpson, right? You have Homer Simpson representing the Dallas Cowboys. And you know what? The funny thing is, on one of the Simpsons episodes, Homer Simpson said if he was running the Dallas Cowboys, he would have just terminated pretty much everyone because the team sucked. Would you agree with that?
I mean,
I know
was,
I'm not
funny,
a
they did a
guy, but this is hilarious.
Anime with Stephen A. about joking about Homer Simpson being uninspired. That he's basically made out of mayonnaise.
You know what? That Stephen A. Smith also mentioned about Dragon Ball Z too. God bless the dead for Akira Toriyama. And I'm gonna put it this way for my hot takes. The Vikings might fire Kevin O'Connell by Black Monday. If the Vikings continues to play this inconsistent, then they might have to be some situations. For the Philadelphia Eagles, this is literally the same mistake you made back when you hired Matt Patricia. Why would you even hire him?
I don't get it. And that was when they knew there was friction between him and Darius Slay from their time in Detroit. Slay was still the lead guy in the defensive back room in that offseason when they brought Patricia in. Why would you try to bring him in knowing, A, his end of his tenure with the Patriots as defensive coordinator did not work out. As a matter of fact, the Eagles won their first Super Bowl against the Matt Patricia-led defense. B, he wasn't a good coach from his time in Detroit and had some beef with one of the key players. It doesn't add up.
Exactly. And on top of all that, and I'm going to say that when I know we're on a bye week, but I really don't care if we lose on a bye week. But if I'm going to put it this way, for the bye weeks, they should make some improvements. The Giants should make some improvements and practice a lot more. The Patriots, they're on a bye week too. The 49ers are on a bye week. And of course, the Panthers are on a bye week.
Oh, that's a bit of an underrated team that even if, say, they get 9 wins this year but miss the playoffs, they could take that momentum and build it for next season. Maybe get 1 or 2 guys in free agency to help build up the draft a little bit. And then, boom, next year you might have shots of finally being contenders if you don't win that NFC South this year.
For the Panthers, they are an offensive coordinator away from contending for the NFC South. Now, as for the Giants, we already mentioned about Mike Tomlin, right? We mentioned about John Harbaugh, but I don't think John Harbaugh is going to go anywhere anytime soon. So for my hot takes in the offseason for the Giants will hire between Mike McCarthy, Chris Shula, or Mike Tomlin. Don't get me wrong. I like those candidates, but if I have to choose one candidate who could help build a winning culture, I would personally hire Mike Tomlin as a head coach. Then you will hire Antonio Pierce as your defensive coordinator, because if you want to talk about good defensive players that used to play for the team that coached, look at Mike Vrabel when he was playing for the Patriots. He helped that Patriots team build a winning culture with Drake May. So if Antonio Pierce does end up on the Giants, we're going to have a lot of discussions about that front four defense. Now, as for the offensive coordinator, that's going to be a little tough, though, because I kid you not, if I want somebody as an offensive coordinator who has an offensive mindset, give me one of those top candidates and I'm good. I'm gonna probably say like around Joe Brady or Joe Brady for the Bills, or probably someone who has a really good offense. As for Mike McCarthy, there is some pros and cons I want to put out to that. One, Mike McCarthy's the pro side. He has a winning culture and he won a Super Bowl with the Packers. That's one. Number two, the con side is the offense is outdated. The offensive play calling is outdated. And three, Mike McCarthy has been nothing more than a mediocre head coach. And as for Chris Shula, we already know what legendary family last names are. Chris Shula, Sean McVay, what else? Sean McVay, Chris
Brian
Shula.
Schottenheimer.
Thank you, Brian Schottenheimer, Marty Schottenheimer, Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan. You can name every legendary coach in the NFL, and their sons, Grant, or the family relatives are doing a lot more better than this in terms of either offense or defense. Brian Schottenheimer, now I will say this, Brian Schottenheimer is doing a good job. But ultimately, if I had to choose one candidate for Chris Shula, he will build a defensive mindset with that front four defense. If they don't bench Abdul Carter more and give him more play time and become a great defensive player, then the Giants might have a shot at going to the playoffs or eventually build a Super Bowl contender in the next couple years. You already addressed the quarterback situation. You already addressed the running back situation. You already addressed the wide receiving core. The wide receiving core is a bit decent, but it needs some slight room for improvement. The defense secondary, well, it's a bit sluggish. I already pointed out the Philadelphia Eagles secondary looks somehow garbage with Ringo and Jackson. And the offense is just not good enough. I'm sorry to say it, but the Eagles offense is not good enough in terms of the play calling and the mindset. If they can get their heads straight, get their heads in the game, and bounce back against the Chargers, then it will be a completely different story. That the only thing that I want to see from the Philadelphia Eagles come future games, do not pull a 2023, because what you guys did 2 years ago was nothing more than a late season collapse. Even if you made it to the playoffs, it was a late season collapse and you lost out of the division to the Dallas Cowboys, who ultimately took a first round exit against the Green Bay Packers. Now, could you do the same thing as Super Bowl champions and miss out for the first time since the Los Angeles Rams? We may never know. But as far as I'm concerned, the offense is very a concern. The defense, well, let's just say that the defensive coordinator is looking very good, so I'll keep the defense alive. But Nick Sirianni, he got to get his head together. I'm sorry, but he needs to get his head straight, focus on the right calls, and focus on the right mindset. That's all I'm going to give advice to you guys.
And as far as that goes, I'm going to say this. Offense-wise, we do not need Nick Sirianni calling plays. We got to look for different possible options for offensive coordinator for sure and signal caller. Now, I've seen if Mike McDaniel were to get fired, that maybe he could be a potential candidate. Maybe, but we still got to wait and see about that first. I would not see somebody. I mean, maybe they could go. I mean, they would have to maybe step outside the realm, go for maybe. Would they go outside the realm and try to pay Deshaun Jackson? Nah, I don't know. He's not still a college coach. But as of right now, if you're looking you need a new signal caller. If Kellen Moore were to somehow get fired, I don't see that happening, but that would be a nice replacement, but I don't see it happening. I mean, I could see maybe a Mike McDaniel, if he were to get booted, maybe he could come in and try to help this right here. Or maybe go get yourself somebody who actually has a good record.
I mean, after all, if they decide to go after Brian Daboll as a new offensive coordinator, I don't know. Look how that happened last time when he was in Buffalo with Josh Allen.
Maybe yes, Todd Monken from the Ravens could be a guy they could try to go after for an offensive mind.
And I mentioned Antonio Pierce as defensive coordinator. You have Vic Fangio. He's an excellent defensive coordinator. Vic Fangio is a greatest defensive coordinator. Now, as for the Giants, I mentioned Antonio Pierce. I think Antonio Pierce is a better candidate than Vic Fangio. As that's not a hot take, but it's a bold take. Because Antonio Pierce has some great experience on the defense. He won a Super Bowl with the Giants, sure. But is he good enough to apply for as defensive coordinator? Absolutely. Now, as for the offensive coordinator, I would personally put either Mike McDaniel or someone else who could get the job done.
Maybe you could go with Josh McDaniels just for his work as an offensive coordinator. Obviously, you don't want him anywhere near the head coaching realm, but that's a possible candidate too, if you're just looking for an offensive coordinator.
If I'm being honest with you, Mike Kafka last night, I got to be honest with you, I thought it was good because I really can't defend him that much because he's an interim head coach, but he did lead that team to a Shrine Bowl, but I'm not going to talk about that. But I am going to talk about is how his head coach complacency. His complacency at first after the Detroit Lions game was the right call. They should have fired Shane Bowen a long time ago after that Broncos game. And to top it all off, they vouched for a rat. He was a former defensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, but you got to definitely find someone. Another name that just came to mind is Greg Roman. He's been a pretty good signal caller for the Chargers. Maybe the Eagles could look for someone like him to replace the Realm as the signal caller, but those are just some possible options. But you definitely got to look for somebody other than Kevin Patullo. Like I said, somebody, maybe Greg Roman, maybe Todd Monken, somebody different, because what's going on with Kevin Patullo isn't working. And eventually in the long term, you're going to need a new offensive coordinator.
Boy, do you miss Kellen Moore, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. He was actually the one calling the plays. And secondly, I don't want Sirianni calling plays. He's better off as a coach when you got someone else calling plays. Look at last year. Look at with Shane Steichen. Sirianni was always at his best when he has somebody else calling the signals with play calling.
You know, I'll be honest with you, I'll be shocked if the Saints fire Kellen Moore on Black Monday. And if they do, I would personally say that take a shot and interview Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator, and then Antonio Pierce as defensive coordinator. For head coach, if the Pittsburgh Steelers or Baltimore Ravens want their head coach gone as of this year, we'll give them a shot. But I know a lot of Steeler fans say that, oh, it's a 9-8 team. You're going to be stuck with 9-8 situations. To be honest with you, I would rather see 9-8 seasons better than just disappointing seasons. Look what happened with the flipping Seahawks. When they missed the playoffs with a 10-7 record, they found their quarterback. They found a backup quarterback in Jalen Milroe. And to top it all off, they got a good coach. So I'm not going to waste even further and say that the next head coach for the New York Giants is Mike Tomlin. Give me him. Give me Antonio Pierce as defensive coordinator, and give me Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator.
Oh, that would have some serious potential if it were to happen.
Because remember, you have all these pieces. You addressed the situation of quarterback I mentioned earlier. You addressed the running back situation with Cam Scatterboot not coming back healthy. and you address the wide receiving core between Malik Neighbors and potentially a young, power-hungry Wan'Dale Robinson. But as far as Justin Jefferson, if he wants out of Minnesota, I would take him. I don't care how many picks does Minnesota want. Give me Justin Jefferson to pair with Malik Neighbors like they did with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I would definitely love that for upcoming future playoff contenders with Jackson Dart.
And last thing I'll say with the Eagles is with Sirianni, if you the main thing is strip him of play calling duties. We know from second season, run to Super Bowl 57, season 4, Super Bowl win at Super Bowl 59. When he's just the head coach, not the head coach, and trying to micromanage and control the plays, he actually does his job well. First, it was Shane Steichen, played a great role in Jalen Hurts' best season. Last year was Kellen Moore, did an excellent job getting the most out of that team. Like I said, if you go maybe to a Baltimore, or maybe try to pay some money for Josh McDaniels, or maybe go and get someone like a Greg Roman maybe, that could help out. Vic Fangio, you definitely want him as defensive coordinator. He's done his best he could. As far as last week against the Bears go, look, there's only so much the defense can do before they tire out. And I've noticed throughout the Eagles' history, when they have head coaches also calling plays, it usually doesn't work out. Like Andy Reid with the Eagles. Some of his poor play calling held the team back from its true potential when he was their head coach. And you see with Sirianni, it's holding the team back from its true potential when the head coach calls plays. So pretty much having a head coach as a signal caller is not a Philly thing necessarily.
And I know this much. Andy Reid potentially ruined a power-hungry Donovan McNabb. I kid you not. He was actually good for y'all in the early 2000s. When y'all had Donovan McNabb on that team and Andy Reid was your head coach, that was true potential, as you mentioned earlier. But Andy Reid, over time, he potentially ruined that. And that super team that you guys formed with Michael Vick, yeah, we won the tank division by then.
Yeah, but the point is, yes, you definitely need a different signal caller. That's the main change I would make coaching-wise at the end of the season. Other than that, stay put coaching-wise. Player-wise, that's a whole nother story. So that's all I got for now about the Eagles. Now we just got to wait and see what happens Monday night.
On Football Fun Day with Monsters, Inc. And I will say this. Thank you guys for watching. Siren Chan VA, thank you for stopping by. Mitch, thank you for stopping by. Until next time, goodbye, my friends. I am Agent Warrior X. Bye for now.
And this is Nikki Stees. Thanks for tuning in to NFL Pick'ems. We had a lot to talk about. Next week will be an NFL Week 15 preview. We'll have an even little bit of a better look at what the playoff picture is going to look like. So tune in next week, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.